Welcome to the Millennial Network Podcast. Now your host, Coach Danny Renee.
What's up, everyone? It's Coach Danny Renee here, and this is the Millennial Network Podcast. We have here B with B Fearless Studios. She is an amazing photographer. She's been doing this thing for like years. We met in 2015. She has embodied the epitome of networking because she reached out to me on Instagram and was just like, hey, I want to take your photos, or however she worded it. And unfortunately, I could not find a date because I was just coming to the end of my career boxing. As some of you may know, I ended my journey towards the Olympics. So we've never been able to, match up and get some of that magic. But B, why photography? Like, tell me your story. How did you get into photography?
Woo! So the short version, I actually was an artist growing up. So I started drawing and painting, and that's actually was the start of my artistic career, I guess I can say. I was blessed to be in a magnet program and in middle school and in high school for drawing and painting. And when it came to high school, we had to take photography and film as an elective. And that's when I knew a lot about cameras. I have a twin sister growing up. I have a twin sister. So growing up, my family used to always take pictures of us. So we were always behind the scenes or doing like cute twin videos and things like that. And I actually had a cousin that majored in film at Full Sail, who's currently a producer at NBA TV. So he was one of the first people that stirred the idea of what a video camera was and what you can actually do with it. And then I had another cousin in the Bahamas who was a photographer as well. So I was always around cameras. And then during my elective in high school, I actually started to dive a little bit more into it. And me and my art teacher didn't get along. So it actually pushed me more into that direction, which ends up being a blessing now till this day. So even with that, I didn't know what I wanted to do after high school. Like I knew I was good photography and I was good at math, but we didn't really have that much experience of what that looked like, in terms of knowing that I was good in math. I didn't really have the resources to know that you can be an accountant or this person or that person. I was always thought if you're good at math, you're going to be a math teacher. And I was like, that's lame, and even with photography, I didn't know what that looks like in terms of a full-time career, but my high school teacher, she actually was the one that pushed me to major in it in college. And she was like, you really have a gift, you really have a natural eye, and I really think that you should pursue this. So I really took her advice and I actually majored in photography at VCU. Richmond, Virginia. And that's when I really just started to learn more and dive more into what that looked like as a career, and for me, I was the only Black person in my major. So I already had a target on my back, as well as me knowing that I'm doing something that a lot of people don't see, that my family didn't see. And I come from a Caribbean background. So telling my parents I'm a photographer, they're just like, but like, what is that? Like, that's not real. And then everyone in their ears telling them I'm gonna be a starving artist, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do that. So for me, it was just really believing in myself and being comfortable with the unknown, not knowing what it looked like, but being very determined to where I knew if I worked hard, it was going to open up so many doors of opportunity. So even in college, it wasn't required to do an internship, but I did an internship every single semester, every single summer. I was out here really trying to learn what this photography degree can take me once I graduated. And from there, it's just been an amazing journey.
Yo, that's crazy. First of all, how many internships did you do?
I'm gonna just name them because I won't be able to count them out loud. So the first one I did was with Dementi Photo Studio. So that was a local photo studio. That's when I knew I didn't want to shoot weddings. And that's where I learned about doing corporate headshots and really understanding what it was like to own a boutique studio. And then from there, I interned with a sports photographer that actually photographed like all the campaigns and all the billboards for VCU, for University of Richmond. So that was when I was like, this is it. Like, I really want to go in this direction. Then I interned with Richmond Magazine. I interned with Urban Views weekly newspaper, which was great because I learned having a fast turnaround time, where it's like, if it's a weekly magazine, you have to get these images out quickly, you know, and every internship I did, I was able to learn something that I still use to this day. And then the highlight of my high school career was interning with People magazine. And that was my mind like really blew up, because I I grew up, the funny thing behind that was when you talk about networking, the funny thing behind that was I was actually applying to intern at Sports Illustrated, you know, Time Inc. owns Sports Illustrated, Essence, all of them. And I was one of those people that because I was so hungry, I was going after it. So I'm finding the human resource person at Time Inc. I'm sending them my information, sending them my resume, going on LinkedIn, you know, doing all of that to where although they already had an intern for Sports Illustrated, they were like, the human resource person really liked me. So she pitched me to People Magazine. And from there, I was able to get that internship. It was a paid internship in New York that came with housing.
Nice.
And it was just one of the, it was a breathtaking experience. Like still to this day, I still talk about it with people. And then before that, though, previously before that, I interned in New York with 2 commercial photographers and with Tribeca Skyline Studios. So I was just hungry to get it, you know, like I really was one of those people that even till this day, I'm still determined to learn and to still stay a student, but also I was so hungry of wanting to be able to not just prove others wrong, but to prove myself right, you know.
Yo, that's dope. Like I tell people that there is power in drive. People respect drive. And then I think one of the, what is it, like an epiphany that hit me this week was that the better that you can communicate, the higher your net worth can be.
Yes.
So many people today do not open their mouths. Even when it comes to their partners, they don't let their partners know how they're feeling. They don't let their family know how they're feeling. And yet you could have all these different people beating you up. You may be at a job where you're unhappy and all you got to do is open your mouth and that can change. To even career-wise, you may see an opportunity in front of you, but you're scared of rejection. So there's power in communication. The people that can open themselves up and comfortable with talking to those corporate level, high level people, as if they're just a regular person, like you said, with hunger and drive and putting yourself out there because you figure that the reward of an opportunity is greater than rejection. That's how you were able to put yourself in these different positions. So like, I applaud you on that because like that's proof of hunger and knowing exactly what you want. So you said, as far as like the People magazine, how old were you when you had that one, that internship?
That was 2012, going into my senior year of college. So
okay,
how old am I? I'm 31. So that was about 10 years ago.
okay. Amazing. Yes, 10 years ago. I'm like 20. Yeah, I didn't even process it. I still forget it's like we're in the 20s of, you know, ever since 2000, right? So people, that was senior year. And then the fact that you did all like those internships, like that's crazy. Most people do like one internship, but I guess that just shows passion. I don't know if it's like an artist thing or whatever, but that definitely shows passion. Okay, so we did all these different internships and you come from a background where your family is like photography, like how you gonna make money? Because there is this starving artist concept. I mean, I went through it myself when I first moved to Atlanta. So walk me through, you're now in college after going against what your family believed. You didn't project their fear onto your future, right? So outside of so you had these internships and now you have college. Walk me through the potential and the vision, because you have to be a visionary, right, to really believe in yourself and like your future. So walk me through the vision and all the different opportunities you did see that you could get into without having to be that starving artist.
So for me, it was, again, like I did the internships because I wanted to know what it looked like, you know, like we didn't have, social media wasn't popping the way it is now to where we can see what that career looked like as a photographer, as a commercial photographer, or all those different things. So for me, I just wanted to be a student to really learn all of what that takes. And honestly, for me, most of my teachers in college were grad students, right? And I always said to my parents, I always said to everyone, if I graduate with this degree and I become a teacher, I have failed. And I only say that because for me, it was one of those knowing I wanted more for myself, but also pushing myself to not settle, you know, because I felt like, no shade to anybody, but I felt like if I went straight from graduating and then becoming a teacher at that university, then I wasn't hungry enough or I didn't do enough, you know? And that's just like, I'm an athlete, right? I grew up playing basketball. That's how I got into the sports. So because of it, I still had this competitive nature with myself to where it's like, I'm competing against myself. And I know if I don't want this for me, I really have to fight through to not do any of those things, you know? And so going from college and doing all these internships, like my advisors didn't even know that I was doing all these internships because it wasn't a requirement to graduate. No one knew I was doing all those things. But for me, it was, I'm going to make sure that I am prepared with a network and prepared with the tools, because school teaches you a lot, but doesn't teach you enough, you know, like I received an amazing art education at VCU, but I didn't learn about the business side. I didn't learn about marketing, networking, reaching out to photo editors. I didn't know what a commercial set really embodied until I started doing these internships and saw, oh man, like it's not just a photographer going to a place and taking a photo of someone. It's a whole collaborative effort. It's a whole team effort, you know? So those internships provided me with those experiences to understand, and then also to network with other people there, to where it was when I graduated college, I had more of an idea of what was my next steps to take in terms of moving, and what was I going to do with my career in order to get to where I get to my ultimate goal, which was not being a starving artist, but being an artist that can pay my bills.
Okay, I like that. So we're post college, you know, we're going through this story. We're post college, and you're like, okay, I don't want to be a silent artist. I don't want to be a teacher, but I want to do sports photography.
Right.
And then there's social media.
Right. So
how do we get here?
So I'm a believer in shooting my shot, right? So I knew when I graduated college, I knew I didn't want to go to New York, right? And the reason I didn't was I interned there for 2 summers, and I like New York, but New York was one of those places where it's like I already been there and I wanted to do something different. And LA was one of those places that I always feared. But the next best thing that was popping during that time when I graduated was Atlanta. You know, this is when Tyler Perry Studios was really starting to become something, and where they were calling Atlanta the Black Hollywood. And I was like, you know what, I want to move out to Atlanta because that's where things are starting up. And one of the photographers that I admired during college was Derek Blanks, who's an amazing commercial photographer and a lighting specialist. So I knew, I literally told, before I graduated, the funny thing is, me and my friends all planned to move to New York after graduation. And I was that one person was like, actually,
I changed my mind.
Like my twin sister moved up there, like all my friends moved up there, and I was the oddball that was like, actually, I'm going to Atlanta. And the funny thing was, I told my parents, I'm like, yeah, I'm going to move to Atlanta and I'm going to assist with Derek Blanks. I never had a conversation with Derek Blanks, but I was just one of those people like, this is what's going to happen and this is how it's going to happen, you know? And luckily my cousin lived here, so he lent me his couch, and I started sending out emails. I had went to Sweden for a job, and I've had my sister call Derek Blank's studio every single day until they answered to get me a interview. And
that's crazy.
And she sounded like me, so it did really matter. And she was able to lock me in for an interview, and I came out to Atlanta. And I interned and then became one of his lead assistants. And from there, it was, again, I was one of those people that I like to learn from others. And I also like to be a visionary. So when I got there, I saw a lot of his assistants that were comfortable being his assistant. And I told him from I was like, I'm gonna be with you for a year, then I'm going full time. And I told him that because I wanted him to hold me accountable, but also I had to hold myself accountable, knowing that I'm not trying to be comfortable being your assistant. I know what I want in my life, and I know I told myself I'm gonna be your competitor, but it's all out of love, you know, it's all out of community, it's all out of love. And for me, it was one of those, like, once I started working with him, I started learning more about, again, being on these sets, working like all these different clients, and learning what type of clients I didn't want and what type of clients I do want, as well as learning about how to lead on your set, how to be the director of your photo shoots, how to communicate with your clients, how to make sure everyone's comfortable, how you even deal with adversity during shoots, because no one really knows what that's like until you're on a set with someone that you're not getting along with, or, you know, or even if you're not having a good day, how you have to turn on that character and still create that experience for your client, you know? So I started all those things working with him. And again, I was learning so much, but I was activating everything I learned. So the days I was assisting him, the that the studio weren't being used, I was there shooting. I was going on Craigslist finding models. I was going on Instagram sending DMs, like really reaching out to people like, this is what I know I want to do. But I had to learn to build my clientele and to build my portfolio for the type of jobs and the opportunities that I wanted to get. And that's why I tell people all the time, build and create work for the type of clients you want to get. Like I wasn't out here shooting weddings because I don't want to do weddings, you know. I knew ultimately what I wanted my clients to be. And I started creating that type of content, and it started to, again, it just started to build and build and build to where I was able to start making money and getting my own apartment and doing all these different things and paying my own bills with just a camera.
Got you. So when you were working for Derek, was he paying you as an assistant?
So we were getting some jobs we would get paid, but other jobs we could get exchange for renting his equipment or using studio time. So I was taking that to my advantage. I'm like, bet, like I literally, you can ask until this day, I was in his studio every single week shooting because again, in this industry as an entrepreneur and as a photographer, no one's going to hold your hand. No one's just going to bring you an opportunity. You really have to go out and get it. You know, you really have to be hungry. You really have to you have to create the opportunities for yourself. And even like so many people want a photographer, but don't know where to search, you know? And I've slid in so many DMs that some people are like, man, I was looking for a photographer. What's your rates? You know, and you just never know what those opportunities can look like once you just give people what they're looking for if they don't even know that they need it, you know? And for me, I started really being able to build my work and my portfolio around working with like the top Atlanta trainers, because I knew if I work with this trainer, another trainer is going to see it's become a domino effect, you know, and it all starts just falling down where it's like, oh, you work with this person. Oh, those photos were dope. I loved his flyers. Can I do this? Can I do that? And it just became one of those domino effect things, you know, so.
Man. So everybody that's listening to this, she's giving you, no matter what industry you're in, skills and keys on building a business. Because she started off, she went to college, you know, college is not bad. Like you have a lot of people out here, saying that college was bad. I probably said that at one point because I probably heard someone else, but then I got all these degrees over here. Because the beauty about college is, number one, rich people, they still send their kids to college. Why they send their kids to college? Not just to study and just education, but networking. And then especially even when it comes to the arts or just whatever your whatever industry you're looking at being, how you have the theoretical side, and then you have the hands-on experience. So she started off with education. From education, she technically went outside of education. She did internships, but she technically went and got a job as an assistant. So it's nothing wrong with having a job, right? Because your job is your first investor into your dream, right? So she got a job on this side, part-time. She was working her business. She knew exactly what her business is. So you got to know what your business is. From there, the problem with people today is that they think that clients are just going to come to you because you created some fancy name, some fancy logo and LLC. Like people, that's not the real foundations of the business. She just gave y'all the foundation of a business, which is making yourself visible. You know who Nike, Coke, Netflix, you know what all of these businesses are now because they've put themselves in front of you. So she put herself in front of a lot of people, which is prospecting. So she just gave y'all game on prospecting. So going into prospecting, because you had a message, and I'm pretty sure maybe there was a point that it was very intimidating, or maybe it wasn't. You probably got a lot of no's. I don't know. So tell us about where your message started and where it got to, and then where I guess it stopped to the point where you didn't need to necessarily prospect, or maybe you still need to do it now. But where did it start at, and where is it at now?
For me, it's one of those. I'm still, as an entrepreneur and as a creative, you're still going to have to market yourself in different ways. You know, especially the way that technology and social media is changing, you still have to put yourself out there for different opportunities. Like there's thousands and hundreds of thousands of photographers, you know, and the same thing with every industry. It's a lot of industries are oversaturated, but you can still stand out because who you are, no one can replicate your experience, you know, like there's photographers that can create work like mine. There's photographers that can create work better than mine, but people come to me for the experience. And I think that's been like the biggest thing for me of learning, is that It's about how you make people feel. And when you leave a lasting impression, like the blessing of my business is most of my biggest jobs have been word of mouth referrals, and I always tell people that I'm like, you can do all this marketing, but if you leave a bad impression on someone, that hurts much more than how good your work is, and I have a story. So when I worked at People Magazine, again, I was hungry. So every day I was going in, whenever I thought about internships at corporate jobs, I always heard about like, you're just going to be the person getting people's coffee. I didn't drink coffee. I don't go to Starbucks. I don't know that whole thing. And I made it my job and my mission to not be that type of intern. So every time I was there, I was talking to all the photo editors, asking them, how can I assist them? Like doing crazy, miscellaneous things that they didn't want to do. But I knew that I wanted to leave a lasting impression to where years later in 2020, one of the photo editors who worked at People Magazine was still following my work and now worked for AMC and hired me to shoot a campaign for AMC, and I always tell people success isn't instant,
Marathon.
You have to plant seeds, and these seeds may take years, but if you don't give up, you just never know. People are going to remember how you made them feel years later. Because even when I had the call with her, we did a Zoom call. This was like a little bit like when COVID was starting to slow down and people were starting to go back outside. And I was like, why do you remember me? And she was like, you were the only intern out of the 10 years that we did internships. You were the only one that asked for work consistently. They're like, everyone else used to just sit in the back, but you were the only one that was always asking if you can help or if you can do something. And I always tell people, I tell that story because it's like, I could have been one of those regular interns that's just like, I'm just here for the money. I'm just sitting in the back. If y'all need me, find me. But I really made it my job and my mission, especially being a young Black girl in a predominantly white business, to make and leave my stamp there to where they're going to remember me in all the positive ways and no negative ways at all. And still till this day, it has led into so many beautiful opportunities because that opportunity led to another opportunity, which led to another opportunity. So for me,
it's probably going to keep leading to more.
Right. It's going to keep leading to more. So for me, it's always about your network is going to open up so many doors and not being afraid to knock on doors and create opportunities. Like I hear a lot of photographers talking about like, I don't do free shoots. I don't do this. I don't do that. That's them. Like what works for them works for them. What works for me works for me. And I still do free shoots because those free shoots have led to paid opportunities. Like I did a personal project, a women in sports personal project. And it was just a passion project. Like I'm a woman, I love sports, and I wanted to really document what that looked like, to where I met one of the ESPN analysts, and she has a podcast on Pandora. So when Pandora was looking for a photographer to shoot the campaign, she told them they had to hire me. And this was a campaign that ended up being in Times Square, New York. So it's like, you just never know when you're planting seeds. Every seed you plant will bloom if you allow it to bloom. And if you trust the process and trust that I'm going to do this, and not even with just the expectation that it's going to lead to something else, but with the expectation of knowing that I'm planting something for my business. And I know that if I have the right intentions and if I'm intentional with everything that I do, it is going to lead to the type of job or the type of experience that I want my other clients to feel, because I'm intentional with my service. Because at the end of the day, I'm in a community, I'm in the business of serving. I serve people with photography. I serve people with my art. I'm serving, and I had to remember and realize that God gave me this gift to serve, and I can't be greedy with it. I have to be willing to serve. And even when it came to the educating, I always thought I never wanted to be a teacher, but then COVID taught me I had to like have a little talk with myself and a talk with God, but it made me realize that like I have my studio now, but I never wanted a studio. If you ask like all my closest friends, I'm like, yeah, nah, I'm not, y'all won't see me having a studio. That's not me. But during COVID, I realized that a studio had nothing to do with me. And once I realized that, it was like, I really had like a conversation with God, and he was like, this studio ain't got, like, take your ego, they ain't got crap to do with you. Like, this studio is a place for others to be able to have the resources that you had. Like I was in a magnet program. I had access to a dark room. In college, I had access to the equipment, to studios and all those different things. And I had to learn that me having this space allowed others who may not be able to afford college to be able to have a space where they had the access to the studios, the lighting equipment, the education, the workshops and different things like that. So once I understood that, it became bigger than me and it became more than what I wanted for myself, but understanding that I'm still here to serve and not just behind the camera, but to educate others as well, because I want to be able to create an experience to where there are better photographers than me. I want to see other young Black girls killing this sports game too, you know, like, and it's one of those, once I understood that, it really changed my mindset and my perspective of where I wanted my business to go and how I can make this business last me long-term, even when I stopped taking photos. Because once I started doing more educational videos, of course, I had the people telling me like, stop giving away all your secrets and stop telling people this. And I'm like, it's mine. It's not mine to hold on to. Like, it's mine to, as well as what God has for me, no one could take. So you ain't stealing my clients, because if God brought them to me, they're mine. If he didn't, it's yours, you know, and it's not competition, you know. And once I understood that, and I'm a big believer in that, in terms of, even like with the whole brand, Be Fearless, everything I do is out of pushing away the fear or pushing away all the negativity that other people may say, to where it's like, if I want to do something, I'm gonna go out and do it. You're not gonna push your fears on me. My parents tried, and even till this day, I had to learn that it wasn't them doing it because they didn't believe in me. It was because they did it out of care. They did it out of love. They wanted to protect me. And there's nothing wrong with that. But a lot of people, we fall victim into falling into it and believing that for ourselves, versus like, nah, that's not gonna happen to me. But thanks for your advice. Thanks for your feedback. But I got this. You know, I'm gonna trust myself. I'm really gonna do what I need to do to make sure that I can create the success and what the success could look like for me. And again, and on off topic, I could talk a lot. I could ramble.
No, you good.
But the last thing too is when it comes to being not just a photographer, but a human, period, you have to define what success looks like for you, right? Like, so many people are like, oh my gosh, you're so successful. You have this, you have that. And it's like, that's how you define success. That's not how I define success. And once we can really clarify what success looks like for us, we will stop with the comparisons. We will stop with the going on social media and getting down because we're looking at another person and their life looks amazing and their life. Because I'm like, social media is just a highlight reel. You know, people hide on social media, but once you can really clearly define what success looks like for you, like I tell people all the time, for me, success isn't having a studio. Success isn't having billboards and all those things. Yes, those are dreams. But success for me is being able to pay my bills. Success is being able to have kids and know that I can take days off and go to their basketball game and support them and not have to worry about, oh man, I have to call in or do any of those things. That's what success looks like for me, is being able to know that I can give and support my family and support my kids with doing something that I actually love.
Wow. It sounds like you did that whole vision board on that, because you're like, I know this is my vision, this is what it looks like. And I'm glad you shared that, because what my mentor always says, that entrepreneurship is really just a personal development program. Where I started in my journey, oh my God, like is definitely completely different now, because I think earlier in my journey, actually let's kind of go back, because you mentioned a lot about giving. And I think that's very important. I think that's the part that so many people miss out on. So just a little bit in my journey, and it kind of matches yours to an extent, where when I first moved to Atlanta, I moved here to make movies, like produce, direct. That's been my passion. Like, I think that's the only thing that I loved outside of basketball. You know, and then obviously I ran track, but basketball was my first love. So I did call around to all these different producers. I called agents. I remember calling Angelina Jolie agent. She probably like, who the hell? I mean, I think it was a guy. He's like, who is this? You know, just called any and everybody I knew that touched the industry, because applying didn't work for me. End up working for this producer, and that producer, like, I was on the set like, hey, can I help? Can I do this and that? But I didn't get paid a lot of money in that experience, but I learned so much that I decided to get out because I wanted to create my own. I didn't expect creating my own to take as long as it's taking, but I have learned so much in my journey. But just fast forwarding to walking your journey, but knowing that part of your journey is not just about money. And I think that's where the struggling artist has a bad rap. The struggling artist or the struggling entrepreneur, because struggling, typically when people struggle, like I know there's like a saying where it's like a mom and a kid, and if they don't have no food, like who is the one that's supposed to eat? Does the mom feed the kid? Like, that struggle, because struggling, we're gonna do whatever it takes. Like if the world ended right now, we're gonna struggle, we're gonna panic, we're all gonna rush to the nearest, situation to get food, weapon. Like we're gonna do stuff on impulse and not logic, right? And I feel like that's not where you should have to build a business. You should not have to build a business on struggling, because struggling takes away passion. It takes away humanity, because now you're not really trying to serve a person based off of their needs. You're trying to serve a person based off of your survival needs, and survival should not be. I personally feel like survival should not be the only way to grow business. But you walking with your journey, you gave a lot. You put your name out there. So y'all business, like learning business, because she's giving game. She put her name out there to so many people in person, on social media. She became her own walking billboard. And on top of her being a walking billboard, she served, she gave to so many people. And I don't know if you ever seen that TV show, is Undercover Billionaire. Have you ever seen that?
Yes, I think that's
Yes.
like one of those. Yeah.
Okay, listen, I didn't finish the second season, but the first season was amazing, because what the show is free. Here's a free publicity, right? The show is basically, they take these billionaires, they sit them in a town where no one knows them. They have to use a different name. They don't have access to the resources. You only have $100 in the truck. So the truck could be valued at whatever, but they only have $100 in the truck. They don't have a house. They don't have anywhere to stay. And they have, I believe it's 30 days to build like $1 million business. So they're struggling. And then the lesson that I got from watching that show is pretty much what you just mentioned. In order for them to be able to build that business, one, they couldn't do it by themselves. So teamwork is everything. That's number one. And number two is, in order for them to build, they had to give. Like, even on second season, everybody, that in order to build, they had to give. They gave for free a lot of the times, because we always touching the price of everything. And sometimes the biggest price is your time, because that's the one thing that you can't throw a number on.
Right.
I mean, you can to an extent, you can create your own worth, but you can't throw a number on time. So if you give people your time, then it comes back. So that's the lesson I just got from your story. Okay, so now we got Be Fearless Studios, Be Fearless and Create. How did you get to, that's first of all, that's a very powerful brand logo, and it just stands out. So like, when did you know, like you was like, this is it?
COVID. So
Okay.
I always tell people COVID 2020 was a year that it's good and bad depending on how you look at it, right? And I'm a big person on perspective. And I knew that for me, I enjoyed COVID because it forced me to be still. And working and moving and things like that. Like I was traveling a lot, doing a whole bunch of things, and I was forced to be still and had to really look back over my life and look over my career and really figure out okay, if the world shuts down, how can I still be of value, right? And how can I still, who am I outside of photography? Like what is my identity outside of that? And during COVID, I started getting a lot of random messages from high school students and college students wanting to pick my brain and learn more about photography and all these things. And I'm like, how the heck are y'all finding me, and why me? Like, of course, I'm still like my toughest critic. So I'm always like, I mean, I'm good, but like, I'm not like great,
I'm not
like,
good.
level, So when I started hearing a lot of people's stories, and I started doing like a lot of Zoom calls with high school students and classrooms, and like I did a call with a school in Iowa, and I'm like, I don't even know where this is on the map. Like, how do y'all know about me? But once that happened, I really started to dive more into hearing people's story, hearing about like how some of them couldn't afford to go to college and all these different things. And again, because I work with athletes, I work with a lot of track athletes, right? And track and field, I love that sport, but it's one of the hardest sports to make a living off of. Like my husband's a high jumper, so I see what it's like firsthand. And working with so many people, I hear like the difference of what they have to go through within their career in terms of learning how to market themselves because it's not a televised sport and things like that. And when I'm talking with people, a lot of them speak with fear, and it's just one of those, of course, it's the fear of the unknown. It's the fear of, well, what if it doesn't work out, or, and again, I always have to tell people, for me, it's like, remove the expectation. Like, if you were to do this, if you run this meet today and you don't, and you win, but you expect to get something grand out of it and it doesn't happen, then you don't give yourself the congratulations that you deserve because you're so focused on what the expectation was supposed to look like. And when it doesn't meet your expectations, you don't give yourself the credit, or you don't give yourself the applause to be like, but I still did that. I could still celebrate myself because that's still a win. So even for myself, I had to really, when I'm having more conversations with people, the whole be fearless became my mantra, to where it's like, nah, like we're pushing all that stuff aside. We're pushing away our fears. We're pushing what our parents told us, what our family told us, what our coaches told us. We're pushing all that aside. And I really wanted to push and motivate people to be fierce and create and to throw away all the excuses, because we can make excuses for everything. I make excuses all the time for why I don't work out anymore. We can do it for anything, but it takes you having to really find that part of yourself to where it's like, I'm not going to make excuses for myself anymore. And I'm really going to go out there and I'm going to be fearless. So during 2020, I knew I wanted to come back to Atlanta and open up. So I moved to LA. Let me rewind. I moved to LA in 2017. And in 2020, I loved LA, but I knew that I knew that I was going to come back to Atlanta. Like for me, I wanted to tackle LA to prove to myself that I can do it, that I can survive LA. And I did. I'm like, okay, I'm
survive LA.
Yeah, because it's one of those, like, I went from having my own apartment in Marietta, I had a balcony, I had all these things, to having a roommate in LA. Actually, let me rewind. I went to living in a living room in someone's house in LA. Then I went to couch hopping. Then I went to having a roommate, right? So I went back to, I built something here, but I was so comfortable in Atlanta when I first started, like when my career first started to take off, I got too comfortable. I got too complacent to where it's like, and I like to be uncomfortable. I'm one of those, like, if I feel like I'm getting stagnant, I need a shift. And at that point, I was like, you know what? I'm not married. I have no kids. It's time for me to go out to LA and face that fear, because LA was always a fear. And I was going back and forth for work anyway. So I'm like, let me go out there and face it. And whoo, LA's a different beast. But LA, I appreciate LA because it taught me a few things. One, the world is this big. And that's what LA taught me, because when I got out there, everybody knows everybody, or somebody knows this person or knows that person. And we automatically assume that this world is so big, but it really is very, very small. And again, your network is your net worth, and people always say that, but it's so true, because I started to get so many opportunities because I was with one person who referred me to this person, who referred me to that person, and it became a domino effect again. So for me, the first thing that LA taught me was that the world is small, and to use your network, and not to be afraid to ask. Like LA's full of, I don't want to say fake people, but LA's full of a lot of people that are trying to put on a front that they got stuff together, right? And if you're putting
which it seems like Atlanta now too.
But like you said in the beginning, closed mouths don't get fed. So if I'm out here acting like things are so groovy, no one's going to look to give you an opportunity if you out here flexing that you don't need an opportunity, right? But I was one of those, like, if I could find anyone, like I still assist photographers till this day, because I'm still a student. I'm still a student to this craft, and I have no problem with, hey, can I assist you? Can I do this? Can I do that? But a lot of us, we allow our ego to control our business and to control our mindset, and that our ego's a thing that gets in our way all the time. It's not, it's work ethic also, but it's our ego, because like when I was in LA, I had no problem assisting and interning, because again, I was still learning and I was building my network to where when I had opportunities, I already had a crew that I can build or a crew that I can hire because I already work with them on another job, or I knew that I can call on this person. Hey, I need a referral for a digital tech or a photo assistant or a studio, but I build my network to where I was able to find those resources, and then the next thing that LA taught me was not living my life based on one stream of income, right? So I have a lot of clients that are serial entrepreneurs, and all that stuff. But it wasn't until I got to LA to where I really understood how to make my money work for me, because I went from being so comfortable here in Atlanta to moving to LA and being uncomfortable, but really having to strategize and really having to figure out, okay, if I'm creating photography, if I'm creating photos, how can I still create a source of income outside of that, And then me opening up a studio became more apparent when I was in LA because I'm starting to see like, man, Atlanta doesn't have a lot of what LA offers. LA offers this, but Atlanta doesn't offer that, So I started to really be able to see what that looked like. And I knew that when I came back to Atlanta, I knew I'm coming back to Atlanta, I'm going to buy a house and I'm going to open up a studio. That was my two things before I moved back, I said, this is my plan. I'm going to come here, move back here 2020, buy a house, open up a studio. And so I opened up my studio September 2020. It was my COVID baby while people was out here having COVID kids.
Right.
I birthed my studio, and it was one of
my studio.
Man, it was one of the blessings, like the biggest blessings, because for me, it made my business skyrocket because I was looked at differently now. Because now, yes, I was a photographer, but now I have a space. But not only do I have a space, I have a brand. And not only do I have a brand, but I'm educating and I'm doing this and I'm doing that. So now more people are starting to look at me. And I first, like, if you ever followed me prior to 2020, y'all never saw my face. Like, I wasn't doing none of this stuff, but I had to realize that people want to see the person behind the camera. People really want to connect. And people started telling me that they loved watching my photo shoot breakdowns or watching my behind the scenes because they wanted to work on set with me because it looks so fun. And that's when I really started to realize it's all about the experience that you create for everybody and not being afraid to live in your truth and be the brand. Like I always got my brand on because I want to be a billboard, not just for my studio, but I want people to start a conversation. What you mean be fearless and create? Create whatever it is, whether it's creating the art, creating the life, creating the marriage, whatever it is, you can create that stuff for yourself if you just go out there and be fearless. So
yes,
that's how the whole studio came and how it's been a blessing. Like even till this day, I walk in here all the time and I'm like, man, like God, you did that. Like I literally have something that I never dreamed of, that high school me would have never thought was possible or never even knew it was a possibility. And again, because I was so open to the unknown, God just opened up my mind and opened up my vision to where it's like, nah, you got one studio now, but we're going to have some bigger ones later on, and it's one of those of trusting the process and being comfortable with being uncomfortable and being okay with not knowing what the next step is, and even changing our mindset when it comes to money. Like our culture, we spoke earlier, we talk about the surviving mentality, where other people, they're not taught that. They're taught to live. We're taught to survive. Once I even change my relationship with money, I start to understand, like, I don't cry myself to sleep over if I don't have a job this week, because I know that God's going to provide and it's going to come in multiple ways because I have different sources of income now with my businesses, So for me, it's just like once you unlock and once you unlock that mindset gap, everything's just going to start falling in place to where I like to say, like, I live like, not like a hippie, like, oh, like everything's going to come to me. But I really trust and believe that God's going to show off, and he does every single time. So I never stress about if I don't have a job coming up, because I know that God's going to provide, and I'm planting seeds. So I know that no matter, even if it takes longer than I expected, like I graduated college in 2013. I got my first Adidas campaign in 2020. That's 70. Was that right? Am I doing my math right?
Yeah. 7 years. 2013, 2020.
Yep. And I could have easily been like, man, like, I graduated college, I should have had this now. No, I stayed true to the process, because at the end of the day, like someone said, the dream is in the journey. Like this journey has been a blessing. Like the journey for me, period. Like I've grown as a business person, as an artist, as a wife, as a friend, as a sister, as a mentor. I've allowed myself to enjoy this process of this journey to where it's like, the dream is in the journey. So even if it takes me another 7 years to get another campaign with Adidas or Nike or whoever it is, I've still been able to enjoy this process and meet so many people, so many amazing people and students now along this journey.
And you're still a young millennial doing that, which is crazy. And there's still so much growth that you can go from here. But something, and I like stopping because it's like watching a TV show and or whatever, and you're like, pause, because we got to assess what she just said. Because this is something I feel like I got to listen to like 4 times. So you are giving game for real. But you talked about multiple streams of income. And I want to go over this because I think this is the part that's missed so much. One, you have to understand what your vision is. You understood what your vision is, right? Is. And like you say, so many people, I don't care for the term serial entrepreneur because I feel like an entrepreneur is. An entrepreneur can create multiple businesses. Serial is just something that I feel like they attach to people that's confused, that just don't know what they want to do. Some people fight me for it is what it is, but I feel like an entrepreneur can create multiple businesses. But maybe just an entrepreneur is more structured and they understand what their mission, because multiple streams of income, people think it means like, hey, I'm going to be a real estate agent. I'm going to also teach, I don't know, ballet on the side, whereas I'm going to start my own trucking business. Like, I mean, you could do that, but if you look at any distribution center, right, they all started somewhere. Coca-Cola started off with Coca-Cola. Now look at all these different brands that came from Coke, and they got water, and then they got their hands in so much more. But they started somewhere. They had a plain focus, right? Jay-Z started with music. Everybody originally knew Jay-Z as a rapper. Now everybody we associate Jay-Z with rapping, but we associate him as an entrepreneur that owns multiple businesses and an investor. So the fact that you understood the assignment, you're a photographer, but you understood that there's other forms of income that could kind of come out of what you're already doing. I feel like that is the pure multiple streams of income, is different streams, because with a stream, it starts somewhere and then it goes off in different direction. You started with photography, and then you understood that a studio can create another stream. Teaching can create another stream. Maybe even relationships, referrals, I don't know, but you're understanding that different streams can come out of what you're already doing that doesn't require you to exhaust so much energy from different directions. That's what a stream is. It's one force pushing into different directions versus when you're doing multiple things. Because I've been trying to do it recently. Like because I'm in school right now and everything, my time is so divided and something has been lacking. So I had to obviously hire help, an assistant to kind of help me with that. But that's what I feel like, that is what the true definition of multiple streams is you got to find what is the original force and push it into different direction that doesn't require you to take energy away from what your original mission is. So you got the assignment, right? So so you got the studio. So let me ask you this question. This is something I thought, and just like for the listeners just hearing it, you mentioned a couple of times that you did sleep on a couch. Do you feel like you had to be that struggling artist at all in your journey to get to where you're at now? Or do you feel like you not necessarily weren't struggling, it was just an easier decision, a more fluid decision to get you to wherever you needed to go just to get the job done?
It was, that's a good question. I never been asked that. It was a mixture, right? Because it was my cousin, he's family, and he was like, yo, be like, whatever you need, like you can stay on the couch, And for me, it was an easier route from graduating from college with not really a lot of money and moving to Atlanta right away, right? Because of course, if I want to get an apartment, I had to have like pay stubs, I had to get co-signers, all those different things. And because I didn't have that right away, I knew that I can still have this time to build and have this time to save, you know? And I think one of the biggest things that I think is ruined in our culture is this idea of when you're 18, you're supposed to move out, right? And the reason I say that is I come from a Caribbean background, to where in the Bahamas, that's not the mentality in the Bahamas. The mentality in the Bahamas is you can stay here and save until you're ready to marry, or until you're ready to buy a house, or until you're ready to do all these things. And a lot of us go into this struggle season because of our egos. Like, well, I'm 18, I'm grown now, I'm about to move out, I'm about to do this, I'm about to do that. And it's just like, once you realize, okay, well, I actually could have been saving how much money on this apartment if I'm actually stacking up all this money and putting it as like, I could have saved this for a down payment, or really spent time building my credit, like doing all these things. Like, we miss so much in our financial education that, like, I'm learning, of course, the more I'm in business, the more I'm learning more about it, and the more that I'm educating younger people, where it's like, nah, do this, don't do this, don't, you know, like I got my first credit card when I was it was 2011, because my friend in college worked at the bank. Was like, oh yeah, you need to get a credit card. Bet I got a credit card, but didn't know how credit worked. So I got a credit card knowing I had this amount of money. I'm in college. Y'all, I got $1,000 on this card.
Oh man, you were one of those.
And it's like we spend so much time not educating ourselves on how to utilize things correctly, where other cultures, they actually educate their kids and they actually build their kids' credit. So by the time, like I photographed a conference for Essence magazine. It was like financial literacy something. And I'm hearing these conversations with Black women, and that's kind of where this was out in LA. This is where my mindset really shifted, because they were speaking about money, and they were speaking about how our community has such a poor relationship with money. In terms of, like, one of the questions they asked was, when you look at your bills, who gets sick to their stomach? And almost everybody in the audience raising their hand. It's okay, well, what do you do once you look at your bills? Oh, I go to sleep. Oh, I do this. I do that. And I'm realizing that a lot of us have that poor relationship with money, to where it's like, we get so sick to our stomach that we don't know how to work through it, right? And I had to realize for myself that I had to change my mindset when it came to money as well, where it's just like, if I look at a bill, oh yeah, babe, we got that, and not struggle and not stress about it, because when you stress about it, you're not fixing the problem. Because you going to sleep, you're gonna wake up and the bill's still gonna be there, you know? So I had to realize I had to learn, I had to change my mindset when it came to money, as well as I had to think as an entrepreneur. I had to think about learning the business side, because it's one thing to be a photographer, right? But everybody's out here doing $50 photo shoots, doing this, doing that. But I have mentors who made $150,000 in 31 days shooting headshots. And then I'm meeting other photographers who were making 5-7 figures off of one photo shoot, right? So because of that, I built my network to where I was learning and I was educating myself and being in the rooms with people who were having conversations that they weren't afraid to have. Like, our community, we're afraid of having finance, like talking about finances, talking about how much to charge, how to do this, how to do that. But I started to be in room. Like, I did a conference in Virginia, so speaking has been one of my other streams of income. And I was in this room with a whole bunch of older white photographers. All them took out their platinum Amex cards. They're over here talking about how they don't pay the annual fee and how this person don't do this. And I'm sitting there like, these are conversations that we don't have on a normal, but they're freely like, oh, well, I'm gonna connect you with my broker and we're gonna do this. And I'm just like, God, I see why you put me in these rooms, is so that I can learn and then I can educate. So even when it comes to photography, I'm not doing no $50 photo shoots for nobody, you know, but it's like, I had to understand the business of it and understand, okay, like when it comes to usage and licensing, like during COVID, I wasn't shooting, but I was still making money because I was able to license my photos for big campaigns and other projects, you know, but because I understood that business side of photography, I was able to do those things and create streams of income, even without picking up my camera again, but using old imagery that I already created, you know? So
wow.
It's just been that education factor and not being afraid to be in communities that don't look like us and not hopping on the bandwagon of trying to be with the famous looking photographer on Instagram. Like, there's so many dope people on Instagram that have dope followers, but their bank account doesn't match. So why am I going to take advice from that person if I can learn from somebody whose bank account and whose business plan has proven that they can do this and create this? Learn from those people, you know, like, yes, I have followers on Instagram, but my life isn't to have followers on Instagram. You know, I'm really out here trying to create generational wealth for my family, for my, like, even I tell my husband till this day, like, everything, because I like to plan. So even like with us wanting to have kids, I'm like, I need to make sure that if I'm not working for 6 months, we still got money coming in. Because as a woman, you never know what your pregnancy can look like, you know? So you have to think, you have to plan, you have to work smart in your business to where you're not like, who was they were like, you don't want to just be an employee in your business, you know? Like, even for me, I delegate now. Like, I have an assistant, I have a marketing partner, I have all these different things because I know what I'm good at, but I also know what I'm not good at. And instead of wasting my time and my energy on like struggling, like, oh man, I need to really learn this, hire someone to do it. Because now they're saving you, because time, again, time is one of the most expensive currencies, you know? So if I can save time and hire someone to help me manage this, then I'm saving time. And then on the back end, I'm able to make more money because I have this time where this person's doing the marketing for me and I'm able to reap the benefits from it because that's their job to do. And I'm hiring them to do that, you know? And I had to put my ego aside to think that I got to be superwoman and do everything. Hell no.
Right.
Like,
the freedom.
The more I work and the more I'm learning from other people, the more I'm like, okay, you know what, delegate. And being okay with delegating and not being a lot of us are so stingy with our money when we first start, or when we're like, well, I'd rather keep all this. No, pay the person. They deserve it, because then they're saving you so much work and so much on the back end, you know? So for me, it's just been about really learning, staying a student in all aspects, finding mentors, and being in rooms that I never would have pictured myself being in, to learn from those people, and being able to be a sponge to really absorb all that information so that I can pass it down to other people, to where it's like, yeah, we're not doing this like they used to do back in the day. Like, not like, even for instance, photo insurance. I see so many people post GoFundMe's when their car got broken into or their equipment got stolen and no one has insurance. And it's just like, y'all, so you bought an LLC, but you didn't get insurance for your equipment that you're paying over $5,000 for.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and it's just like, now you got to put up a GoFundMe and you got to hope that someone's going to feel sorry and donate to your cause, when if you had insurance, you may have to pay a $250, you may have to pay a $500 deductible, but that's $4,500 that you just saved, because now you got to ask people for money. You know, it's like, we don't really think, we think with a hustle mentality, we don't think with a business mentality, where it's like,
exactly,
insurance costs money, but it's going to save me an arm and a leg if something were to happen, knock on wood, you know? So
hold on one second, look, something happened in my light. You're gonna keep it going. But it's funny you say that, because a buddy of mine, he's a music video director. Yeah, it's just gonna be light, just gonna be off, sorry y'all. But he's a music video director, and he did a couple big music videos, and to where, because his climate is usually like rappers, all his equipment was stolen. Like, I think it happened twice. I don't know if it's 3 times, but I was like, it's twice. He refused to delegate stuff, the stuff that I would say, hey, delegate that, the business aspect to me, I got you. I mean, that's a whole nother story. But twice, like $15,000 worth of equipment, to where he had to build himself back up there. He didn't call the cops at the time, because he's like, they got XYZ on set and he didn't want to be him. So he had, lost like $30,000 total, probably over the years, because of people stealing his equipment. So that part is everything. But you mentioned the financial aspect, and that's kind of the point that I like to get to with everyone. So my question is, like, what is your financial exit strategy? What does that look like for you? I know you said success looked different for you, but what does that financial exit look like? Do you see yourself doing this forever? Do you want to create a residual income and step away? Do you want to create a school? Like, what is it?
Yeah, so for me, it's I ain't trying to do photography forever. I love it. I mean, I always said my retirement plan was I'm gonna be a food photographer because I love food. I just feel like I was gonna travel the world and take pictures of food just for fun. But for me, like so far, of course, my studio is my first residual income right there. But then I plan on having multiple studios as well as I do stock photography as well. So of course, stock photography is work that's going to keep paying you years on end. Like if I post one photo, it's going to pay me for as many times as people use it, you know? So that's another stream right there that I've been working on and still growing that portfolio. The third one is the speaking and the education, because there's not a lot of Black women in sports that are teaching, that are educating, that know lighting, that know equipment. So because I learned that within this space, I really started to tap more into that market as a speaker. So that's another stream right there. Of course, real estate. Me and my husband we're into investing here and in the Bahamas, as well as, you know, doing all the like churros and things like that. So for us, it's just about, my husband's a jeweler and he's a high jumper. So we're both entrepreneurs. We're both always on the move, but we also had to understand that, yes, a lot of our income comes from us actually doing physical labor. And because we understood that, we've already made plans to create streams to where it's not us having to do the physical labor. Like the studio runs on its own. When I'm not here, we're still making money. So that's a blessing right there. And then being able to open up another space, not just here, but also in Miami as well. So for us, it's just about really building multiple spaces, real estate, and education.
Okay. And what advice would you give to that person that is working corporate America right now, and they do have a passion for photography, but they have to keep their job because they don't want to starve. They may have to take care of family, but they do want to create a business to where they could branch off and be happy doing what they love.
Start where you're at. You know, a lot of times I always get people giving me reasons of why they can't do anything. Stop with the excuses. You know, like we have 24 hours in the day. Yes, you work your 9 to 5, but if you're free on the weekends, are you shooting? Are you learning? Are you assisting? Are you building your network? Are you looking for a mentor? Are you doing different things to really educate yourself on what that looks like, as well as are you building work in that downtime for the type of clients that you want to get? Because everyone's journey is different. You know, some people's process takes long. Some people's process are instant. You know, some people just go viral and all of a sudden their work goes crazy, you know, but everyone's journey is different. And do not use social media as a determining factor of your success. A lot of us, well, I didn't get this many likes. Forget the likes, forget that type of validation. Like you really have to remove yourself from that and really focus on your art and focus on your craft and finding people that are willing to give you advice and give you real advice. You know, like I tell people all the time, I was like, I have amazing friends, but they gonna tell me what I want to hear. If I tell them, hey, how does my website look? Oh my gosh, that looks dope, blah, blah, blah. But I have to know that if I really want to get a real constructive criticism, I have to go out to find that, even if I have to pay for it. But I have to actually learn, because what I see for myself, someone else may see it a different way, or a photo editor may see it a different way. So once I understand that, I have to put myself in a room to learn, to educate myself, and to really learn, okay, I need to do this or I need to do that, as well as even with my work till this day, I'm still working on, okay, my portfolio's here, but what do I need to add to it? Okay, let me do a test shoot, or let me collab with this person so I can add this to my portfolio. Like I shot a hockey player because I never shot hockey before, but hockey still fits in a sport. So if I really want to tap myself as this amazing sports photographer, I can't just be biased. So I'm only shooting basketball and track. No, you have to really tap into these different things and not being afraid to tap in and not being afraid to reach out. Like, again, I still slide in people's DMs. I still send cold emails to potential clients or people that I want to work with, because you just never know who's going to give you that yes. And don't take that no, or don't take that response as an endpoint. You know, like people always say, like, there's a door and there's a window. If they close one door, I'm gonna go through a window. If they close that one, I'm gonna find another window. So don't take the rejection as negative, you know, because oftentimes we give ourselves the biggest rejection by not putting ourselves out there, by telling ourselves no to opportunity, because we're so afraid to take that first leap or to send out that email or to reach out to that person. So I'd rather someone give me the opportunity to say no than I give myself the no. So don't be afraid to reach out. Don't be afraid to shoot your shot. politely, of course, and also be mindful of your wording. Like I'll get people, I'm very cautious of the type of people that I work with, or even the people that I mentor, based on the way that they speak to me. So if someone DMs me, hey, yo, you teaching classes? You're not going to get a response, because because again, the way that you respond to people is how people are going to respond to you, and as well as the way that you interact with people. So I'm very cautious, and I'm very mindful of my brand. I'm very mindful of what I stand for, and I'm very mindful of how I want to be represented. So for instance, so when I first moved here, I got the opportunity to shoot a cover magazine for Stevie J and Jocelyn.
Okay.
I turned it down, and everybody was like, "Whoa, why are you doing that?" Da, 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 da. And I'm like, I know who I am, and I know where I want my brand to go. That's not going to help me. And everyone was like, no, but it's a good opportunity for who? I'm like, it's going to be Jocelyn's Bud and Stevie J. And I'm like, how is that going to help me and my brand with where I want to go? Because if a Sports Illustrated looks at that, we're going to pass. That's just another Atlanta photographer. Like I understood the value of my brand and the value of my work, and I never settled because I needed a check. And a lot of people, because we need a check, we're so willing to take jobs that we typically wouldn't take because we're so hungry for that. Oh, well, I need this money, or I need that.
Yeah, survival mentality.
Right. You have to get to that point where you stop with that survival mentality and you really stay true to who you are and stay true to what you want to represent and what you want your brand to be. Because if you look at my work, y'all seeing no booties on my website for a reason. Because I'm really big on what I represent and what I want my work to represent, and what I want overall, if people to look me up and Google me, what I want them to see. Because if I did that shoot, you'll still be able to see that till this day if someone Googled me. That doesn't help me, And so it's also about being very mindful of what type of photographer you want to be, how you want to be represented, and really staying true to that, and not just settling because you need the check or because you need the opportunity, but really staying true to who you are and who you want your clients to be.
Thanks for that. And then you have your mentorship, or your mentorship. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so this summer we're kicking off our Be Fierce and Create workshop series. They're going to be in studio. We're doing a full week in July and a full week in August. And then in September, I'm kicking off my 3-month, 12-week mentorship program. It's free for high school students, but it's also open to amateurs and to pros as well. So if you follow Be Fierce Studios on Instagram, if you go to our website, befiercestudios.com, you'll be able to find more information about that.
Nice. And do you have gear? I can't think of the correct terminology. You have other gear? Like, do you sell gear with Be Fearless?
Yeah. So this is actually our Mental Health Awareness Month apparel. So we have the green ribbon, as well as we put the blank in there so that people can actually write in, whether it's Be Fearless and share your story, Be Fearless and talk about it, whatever it means to you for Mental Health Awareness Month. We wanted to really create an apparel line that would stir the conversation amongst our community. So that's our May Mental Health Awareness Month apparel, but we also have crew necks, hoodies, tank tops, hats, all that good stuff, and it's all on the website as well.
Okay, and you said what's the website again?
Be Fearless Studios.
Be Fearless Studios. Okay, yeah, I'm definitely gonna have to get that. So I just go to your Instagram. I could just go straight to your Instagram, and it has the link in there.
Yep.
Oh, yeah, I want one, so I'm gonna get one. Perfect. Well, thank you so much for getting on today. Like my ultimate goal was just like, let's make this a little different, and let's go through building a business with a photography spin. And I think you did an amazing job explaining your journey. So I really thank you for today. Do you have any last words for the community?
Be Fierce and Create.
There we go. Awesome. Well, hey everyone, again, thank B for being here today. This is the Millennial Network Podcast, where your network is your net worth, and we are out of here. Peace.